Continuing our lectures on argumentation, this is lecture 2, and today we'll talk about reading the prompt. Okay, so when we're talking about reading the prompt that you are given for the AP English Language Composition argumentation essay, what we need to consider is the context provided, the text, and the task. These are the three most important things when reading the prompt. So there's no really a straight answer because what you're provided with is a quotation or some philosophical tagline that is asking you to consider something. So you have to look at the context in which something is said, who said it, how it's said, and what way do they mean it, and in what context they gave it to you. This determines the framework for that quotation or that philosophical idea that they want you to work with. So, for instance, if they give you a topic, a term, let's say like happiness, but they only mean it in a certain context, try not to stray away too far from that context provided. Now, the text itself, this could be a quotation from a writer, Oscar Wilde. It could be a situation like there's a creativity crisis in America. What does this mean? How do we infuse creativity in in classrooms? This is a prompt actually. So that's an idea. Or there's another one like people when people say how are you or nice to meet you, these are niceties or polite speech and language that doesn't really mean anything. So what is the value or function of polite speech? That would be a situation. The reference may be a larger quotation. For instance, there's a larger quotation about artifice and the illusion from a book called Illusion, and they might ask you to take a stand on a specific thing. Remember, you can either agree, disagree, or qualify the idea provided. So, not only do you evaluate the context of the conversation that you are given, so that you understand where is this conversation coming from, but you're also trying to look at the text itself to be able to use it as some sort of reference, to be able to use it as something in your writing. And then you have to pay attention to the task, which comes right after the text is provided. It'll say something like write an essay in which you have to look specifically at the language that they give you. You cannot assume, okay, I get what they want me to do. They want me to write about identity. No. Look at the way they framed it, the way they framed the write an essay in which you blank. You have to pay attention to that because that will determine how close to the bullseye you are when you are answering the question. I mean, you'll always be within the target, but you want to be as close to the bullseye as possible. So when you're breaking down the prompt, you have to consider two things: terminology and the interpretation. What terms, or just sometimes just one term, are they using? And how do they interpret that term? Not how do you interpret it, which is fine, that's the next step. But first, how do they seem to interpret that term that they provide? Okay, so here's a sample that we're going to be working with. So, in his 2004 book, Status Anxiety, the argument is that humor is not merely entertainment, but they, quote, convey with impunity messages that might be dangerous or impossible to state directly because society allows humorists to say things that other people cannot or will not say. The button sees humorists as serving a vital function in society. Okay, so this is the task. You are given a situation, the context. You are given a quotation, done, the text, quote unquote, and now you have a task. Think about the implications of the Boton's view on the role of humorists, right? And they give you options: cartoonists, stand-up comics, satirical writers, hosts of television programs, etc. They give you something to work with, right? The role of humorists in the world. And then you have to write an essay in which you are defending, challenging, or qualifying. We haven't talked about these three yet, but we'll talk about that when we get to the writing portion of the presentation. The claim about the vital role of humorists. Notice that they qualified the role of humorists as vital. So it seems like they want us to either agree to this idea, disagree, or qualify. Vital in what way? Not vital at all. Maybe they are corrosive to our society. Maybe they are vital because they're the only ones that can say what needs to be said in a time of chaos. I don't know, right? So you have to look at when you're looking at the prompt, you have to consider again what context, what is the text provided, and what is the task. So the last thing we're going to do is you start planning the essay, right? You don't just pick the right answer. There isn't one. You have to pick something you can argue comfortably for a page and a half. Remember that. There is no, what do they want me to say? No, no, no. What do you want to say? How do you want to say it? And what evidence are you going to use to prove that thing you want to say? That's the way you have to think of it. The best way to begin planning the essay is just to cluster your ideas, to have a loose, uh, a fluid goal. I will try to prove exactly this, right? So that's the main claim of your thesis. And I will use this evidence, that evidence. Now, how I'm going to use it, that'll kind of come as I'm writing the body, but you should have a general idea of where you're going. Now, next time we'll talk about the reading of the text and what that entails. That's it for today.